Hey everyone, welcome back to the Anderson Bros Outdoors. I'm Jake, and today is all about shocks. Alrighty, today we have this magnificent beast in front of us. It is the VS410 negative G, I think it's negative, yeah. The VS410 negative G kit. Body obviously doesn't come with that. This is a 3D printed body that has been glued together and is not finished at all. But the bed ripped off of the print bed as I was printing it, so I just threw it together real quick to have it. If you want to make this, the link below for Thingiverse and Cuts 3D, you can download and print it out yourself. What we're doing today is we're going to put some desert lizards on this guy. So you can see here we have the stock Vanquish shocks on it with no springs. I lost one of them. One of the shocks was put together and it was not screwed in all the way. The spring fell out, so I just took all the springs off. Not ideal, but that's what we got. Sorry for the echo. We'll be fixing that shortly. It's also raining outside, so if you hear that in the background, I'm very sorry. I've gone over this truck before. It's got the NSDRC RS800 V2 steering servo. It is the VS410 kit. The only thing that we're using from the VS410 on this truck is the axles, the links, and the drive shafts. That is it. We'll also be installing a set of incision metal drive shafts on this because I've broken one of the plastic ones already, and we don't want to do that again. These are the shocks that we'll be installing. They are Desert Lizard 90 millimeters. I'd really like to test out 90s in the front and 100s in the back, because what happens is that once I'll show you how we dial them in here in a little bit, but once you have them dialed in, the front doesn't need to articulate nearly as much as the back does. And so, you know, the back, if you could get that extra 10 millimeters of articulation, I think it would work wonders. Without further ado, we're going to set this aside and we're going to open up one of these boxes. Joke's on me, I didn't even need a knife. Windy out there. There's a lot of mixed reviews on these shocks. I know some people like them, some people don't like them. You get a piece of paper that comes with them. It basically shows you how the damper is installed or put together. It does give you a part number with the quantity, things of that nature. If you should so happen to destroy the shock, instead of buying a new one, you can just buy replacement parts. So this is the shock itself. It is by Yeah Racing. This is actually not full droop. Full droop is still a little ways to go. The reason that people don't really like these is because they do require a lot of adjustability. This is an excellent thing for a lot of competition trucks because there is no two competition trucks that are the same. So what plays a huge factor here, and before I break this apart, we do have some extra springs, and we'll get into those in a minute because you don't see any springs on this. It does come with some hardware, and then it comes with some additional seals and such, and a tool to take the shock apart. What I like to do with these is I run the front and back completely different. So I'm going to take this apart real quick and show you what I mean. If we take this apart, there is a spring above and below the shock piston. So this would be the shock piston here. Right. Notice that the shock does not have any oil in it. I just use this generic Traxxas 40 weight in all of my crawlers, and it works really well. We're not doing any racing, so realistically, based off of your crawler weight, you're going to want to choose different oil, or really how responsive you want the shock to be. If the oil is too heavy, it'll take a really long time to decompress or decompress the shock. So that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. It really just depends on your style of driving. With that being said, let's check out what we got for springs. There is a mixture of them. You can see we have, I think, light, medium, and heavy. Light here on your right, these are light springs. It comes with super light springs in the shock itself. Those are for the top, right, where it keeps the piston full stroke. And then you have the same springs for the bottom. So these would be this right here. You can see, again, we have more more stroke out of it, but this spring here keeps it from bottoming the shock out. Very, very cool design. Like I said, I run the front and the rear completely different. So the fronts don't actually have a spring in the top at all. I like the fronts to be decompressed all of the way. And the reason for that, I like it to sit just like this. Just like this. You can see how it's all the way compressed. I like that because when you're making a climb, the truck isn't unloaded. And the moment it unloads, it tries to fall back on itself. I don't like to have the springs sitting at full extension and then wait for the shock to compress. So I don't like the fronts to be sitting like this. I like the fronts to be sitting like this, and then as needed, come out. What does that look like? Well, that looks like this. We need to remove this little C-clip here. Good luck doing that without losing it. This one came broken. Nice. So normally it's a C-clip. This one is half a C-clip. Not nice, I suppose. You see how that's a full C-clip there? That is what came on this shock. I'm not super happy about that. I think we want to go with this light one here, the longer one. And so now you put this piston back on here, and if you notice in the piston there are holes, you can actually make those holes bigger to make the shock oil faster flowing through it. So you don't necessarily have to use a lighter weight oil. You can use a heavier weight oil, or it's just more adjustability. I don't personally make those changes. I think it works just fine the way it is. All right, so I looked for the clip, I couldn't find it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take apart one of these stock shocks here, and we're gonna pull the C-clip off of this and hope that it works. So you can see the difference between these two pistons here. So this one is a full-faced piston with holes in it, and this one is a full-faced piston with holes on the outsides of it. Let's try and get this off of here without losing it. Now let's hope this will fit on this. The easiest way to put the snap ring back on, I've found, is to use a pair of needle nose pliers and slide it in place just like such. So you can see we've got it on there. So now, if we take this short spring and we put this back in the body, you can see we have a much smaller area for the front. So we'll still have some droop, but we will not have much. And then as we go over obstacles, the front weight will pull the front into articulation. So just note that this is going to be different for every single truck. This truck is really light. It's around 6 to 7 pounds. So I don't need a lot of spring. Now, if you have a heavy truck, something that's like, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, you will need to put heavier springs in it because that's going to negate the weight. We've got this one how we like it. Let's go ahead and do this other one here. Just to note, you can see the C-clip on there. This one is not broken. I just used a little straight screwdriver. There is a little hole there, and you can get between the hole and the actual piston rod, maybe, and kind of pull it out. If not, you can start it with your needle nose pliers, get enough space, and then pull it out. Maybe it's gonna call me a liar. All right, got it off. We'll do the second front one here. I'm gonna put the long spring in this one, like such. Put the piston back on, and put the snap ring back into place. Bam, just like that. Again, put the small shock in there. Not necessarily needing it, but it helps. Now that we've got that done, we are going to put some oil in it and seal them back up. I normally put oil up to the threads, pump it a couple of times. As you can see here, it's probably a little too much oil because it is coming out, but it'll be all right. Trial and error. Oh, you have to drain a little more oil out of it. It is pretty much too much. We will pull it back apart. Probably only need to put oil halfway up. I need a shock holder. That is better. So I need a touch of oil and it comes out perfect. Just like such. Touch of oil in this one. Bam. Front two are done. All right, so now that we have the fronts done, let's go ahead and move to the rears. Depending on the weight of your truck is gonna dictate how much spring you want in there. I'm gonna use the stock springs in the stock locations, and I'm just gonna add some oil and throw them together. So I'm gonna do that, and you're gonna see this in fast forward. I know it's raining really loud on this metal building, and you can probably hear it really well, so I apologize. Woo. All right, so you can see everything is good to go. Do the same thing with this one. I don't know. What's in there? I don't know. Tighten all these suckers up, and we're good to go. So the next thing you're going to want to do is pop the fasteners, and there is a way, right and a wrong way to put them in. So make sure that you put them in the right way, just like such. That is the right hole, that is a smaller hole, and it is the wrong way. It will break things. Don't do that. They do come with new hardware, which is nice. Not that you need it necessarily, but it always potentially helps. Or it's just more junk to take up your drawer. Whichever you feel. We have the fronts and the rears. Let's go ahead and put them on the car. We already have a spacer for the rear. We don't necessarily need two. So I'm going to move this one to the bottom. And you can see we're going to put this and it does not look like this spacer is going to be skinny enough, so we will not use it. We do need a spacer to put in there though. Another note, you see that there are pistons here. They do have different holes in them, so this will dictate the pace at which the piston will contract and rebound. However, we're going to use these as spacers because they're here, and why not? So just be temporary fix or solution. Until I find a more permanent one. We have the first shock on there. While I have that off, I'm just going to go ahead and place this drive shaft. So you can see the rear is actually quite a bit longer. I don't know if this is going to work due to the sheer length, but we're going to give it a shot. We'll put it on there and test it out. It might probably be easier to do this upside down, but we like doing things the hard way around here. Once we validate this is going to work, we will probably come back and use some Loctite on these. You want to make sure that anything metal going to metal is Loctited, because if it's not, it will probably come apart. So just FYI there. Put this other shock on. Again, sorry for the loud noise. It is raining. Out with the old, in with the new. Again, we're just going to temporarily put one of these pistons here. We have a better solution. Is that one on the outside? Yes, indeed it did. So the reason I put the bodies on the bottom instead of the top is purely for weight purposes. You want the weight to be as low as it can be, and in this instance, that is the bottom. So, looks like full droop. The drive shaft is going to be good. Not going to be any issues there, so happy with that. All right, the rear is done. Front's going to sit up a little more, so it will be leveled off. Right now, it kind of looks like a drag car, an old school drag car, but it will be fixed. I'm going to have to move these or reposition the shocks because it is still sitting a little higher than I like. So one of the things that works really well for me is if the links are either flush or just slightly angled past the skid. You can see that there's a significant angle here, so I'd like them to be like right here. So I'm going to move this probably forward and up 1 or 2 notches. We'll see. Need to get some new tools. These Traxxas tools don't last very long. We'll be buying some MIPS. I'm not sponsored. That's just what I have heard is the best there is, so we're going to try them out. The reason we're having to move this is because the stock VS410 shocks are only 80 millimeter, I want to say. So that is, I believe they're only 80 millimeters, so right about here is where I want it. So right. We're gonna fly in from base. So just like that, folks, there we have it. You can see the front's still trying to suck down on the axle, which is good. You don't want it to fly back and fling back. And when you're doing a lot more vertical climb, that's when you get weight shift and then you come back on itself. So I think this turned out really well. It kind of finishes the truck off. I do have another body that's on the printer, so we will be adjusting that. I'm going to add an interior, and then I'm going to potentially put some bumpers on it. I haven't really decided yet. Stay tuned for that. We will be, and again, I know it's really loud, and I'm sorry. Next weekend, I will be going and getting a bunch of limestone so I can start setting up the crawler course. I'm going to try and finish the limestone with concrete. We'll see how that works. But ideally, we're going to have something really, really cool, and we'll just keep building onto it.